Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, Adam Caplan is here on a Tuesday. We'll get Caplan's power rankings for Week 5. Where do the Eagles fall on his list? Are the Eagles a legit Super Bowl contender? We threw that around yesterday. I want to get Adam Caplan's take on that. How about these injuries? We'll get an update on the injury situation. By the way, Big Daddy, I got your text over there from the 302. He's got a huge P Philly red tattooed to his calf. And by the way, Big Daddy, a strong sock game. Strong sock game for Big Daddy. Thanks for the text. Thanks for the picture. By the way, he's got the Philadelphia skyline and an eagle flying over the Phillies P. Good tattoo. Appreciate you chiming in with that. Adam Caplan is here. Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. Welcome back, Adam. How are you?
Mike, I'm well. Glad to be here. Glad the Phillies are in the playoffs. That was really cool last night. It just so happened I was on a Houston station today. I was planned for about a week, and they said it was pretty interesting how like the Astros already had everything clinched in the AL, and just that the Phillies clinched their playoff spot in their town and their stadium. It was kind of surreal to them. But look, it's good. It's always great. Glad to see the Phillies getting in. I don't know how far they'll go because you never know with their offense, but that's great. The Eagles are obviously the best team in the NFL right now. We'll get into that. And you got the Flyers and Sixers starting up, so it's great. It's a great time to be a Philadelphia sports fan, I think.
Yeah, Sixers opened the preseason last night. Phillies clinch. Eagles 4-0. Let's look at this Eagles team through 4 weeks. The old quarter poll, now 17 games, not quite anymore, but 4 games in over at InsideTheBirds.com. Adam, you have your power rankings up, so let's kind of give our listeners a feel of who the 5 best teams are in the current state of the NFL.
You know, Mike, I know it won't make any of the Eagle fans happy, but you got to give it up to Dallas. No, I don't have them number 1. We're going to start at number 5 since you said the top 5. So as much as I don't think Matt LaFleur ideally is going to be a guy they're going to win a Super Bowl with in Green Bay, he's one of the best regular season coaches in NFL history. It's unbelievable what he's done over his career since he's been there, that he's not fared very well in the playoffs. But I've got them at number 5. Very good defense. They're more of a bend that don't break defense, but they have a good defense. The issue there is their receiver core. They're very young. Aaron Rodgers doesn't completely trust them yet. Romeo Doubs should have had 2 touchdowns last week. He had 1. But he's got to get these young guys involved. So I have him at 5. At 4, I've got the Cowboys. Their defense is phenomenal. The Eagles' defense is good, no doubt. Jonathan Gannon, the last 3 games, has got himself together. But Micah Parsons right now is the NFL's best defensive player. Only in his second year, he's an absolute superstar. And they're really good. They're going to get Dak Prescott. Their hope is by the Eagle game that he'll play in 2 weeks. He's not playing this week. He can't really grip and throw a football right now. But they're really, really good. And how about this Cooper Rush? Here's the thing about the Cowboys, Mike. They found their future backup quarterback in Cooper Rush. What a story, 4-0.
Yeah, and it seems like maybe even the owner was intrigued by what he's seen by Cooper Rush.
Yeah, Jerry Jones is funny. Yeah, Jerry was also the general manager. He likes to take credit for everything because he has all personnel control. But look, they're at number 4. Kansas City at number 3. Look, their scoring's down just a little bit. 1.25 points per game, down a half a touchdown per game through 4 games last year. It's obviously the Tyreek Hill factor, but they're finding a way to win. Their defense is much improved. People don't realize how much better their defense is under former Eagles defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. Doing a great job there. Number 2, what an unbelievable comeback, Mike, the Bills had. They're down 20-3, looked terrible in the rain. The rain in Baltimore last week wasn't like we had it here. The worst weather game so far this season for any NFL game was the Eagles-Jaguars, but the Bills came back. Give them credit. They've got injuries in the secondary that are troubling, but they got the best quarterback in the National Football League, and they're 3-1. And who else could it be? Your Philadelphia Eagles at 4-0. I had them ranked number 2 last week. They're number 1 now. Quite frankly, Mike, they've got the NFL's best roster. I felt that coming into the season, they had a top 3 roster. I will tell you from beginning to end, I don't know if they have a real weakness on the roster. I mean, the special teams are a problem. The return game is really the issue. But if you're looking for a 22-man when they're healthy, now health right now is a problem. But if you're just looking at a roster right now, it's hard to really pick them apart.
Yeah, one of the things I think, Adam, that sets this team apart from others, and I mean, I guess you got to give Dallas credit for this too, is they have some depth. They have withstood some injuries. The Eagles had some key injuries. I mean, you lose 2/3 of your secondary with Maddox and Slay and still play that game and win, and then you lose your starting left tackle, and really your backup left tackle is already out because Dillard wasn't available. You went to your third left tackle in that game. They showed they have the depth to withstand some injuries, much like they did in 2017.
It is amazing that Jack Driscoll plays left tackle. I know I give Jeff Stoutland credit. He gave us in the media a big thumbs up by actually letting it out that when Stoutland did his interview before the season started in August, he basically said Driscoll is that guy now if we need him to be, and he is because Andre Dillard won't be ready for a little bit. He's getting closer to returning, Dillard, but he's got to get cleared medically to take contact on that surgically repaired forearm. So, yeah, that was a good story. Suopeta has been a nice story of development, another lower-end guy, an undrafted free agent. Personnel staffs love it, Mike, when an undrafted free agent not only makes the team, he actually contributes. He dresses the guys the last two seasons, and now he's a key contributor coming off the bench. He's really improved, no doubt about it. They've got a really good roster, Mike. It's been an amazing story because if you looked at them in 2020, how bad they were a bad team. Doug Peterson was on his way out. The players were not developing. And now you look at the rapid pace of the development of T.J. Edwards, who's right now, I'm not going to say he's the best defensive player. He's clearly the best linebacker. He's a reason that Kobe Dean can't play regularly. You just look at the development of so many of these younger players. Marcus Epps is another one. Obviously, Maddox is hurt right now. Devontae Smith now is taking a big jump this season. Dickerson's taking a jump. Simala continues to progress. Gable's getting involved. Jack Stoll's been a great story as a wide tight end. Juergens is going to be obviously Kelsey's replacement. We mentioned Opeta. I mean, we could go on and on and on here. And then you see Trey Sermon play, by the way, last week. Looked great on those two carries. So you're finally seeing development of this young roster, and this was certainly a problem under Peterson's staff.
Adam Caplan, Football at 4. We asked a lot of our listeners yesterday and people who joined us, is this through 4 games? I mean, obviously 4-0. Are they a legitimate Super Bowl contender? In other words, I'm not demanding that you win the Super Bowl. That's not, this team, if they don't win the Super Bowl, it's not a disappointment. But are they a legit contender? Can we let our guard down and get on the ride?
Yes, they are. Here's why. A, roster. B, coaching. C, quarterback. The quarterback is – now I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback yet, but he's made such a jump because he's only played – listen, I'm throwing out last week's game. For people saying he didn't play well, folks, it was raining. The conditions are about as bad as it gets. I'm throwing that game out. The throws that he made in the first 3 games were throws he wouldn't – half of the time he wouldn't even throw the football. He'd drop his eyes. He wouldn't trust his eyes. He wouldn't trust what he should be seeing. And quite frankly, I thought he was underwhelming last season. He's made such a big jump. Because, Mike, when we get information in the offseason, sometimes I'm skeptical. I'm like OTA stuff to me is like, all right, good, he's doing well. Okay, we'll see in training camp. Well, he had a very good training camp where last year he did not. So I'm like, okay, let's just see. I'm feeling good about it. The vibes are good around Hurts. And look, it helps to have the NFL's best offensive line, but he's making big-time NFL throws. He's trusting his pass targets. And the coaches trust him, Mike. Look at the throws he made in week 3. 6 passes over 30 yards. I mean, this doesn't happen unless the coaches trust you. So it's all tied together, and development is Jonathan Gannon as a D coordinator. I know for me, I was unbelievably critical of him. I thought it was well-deserved. He didn't do a good job last season. Okay, now as the players are no excuses. He's made a big jump. Shane Steichen's done a good job as their OC. Again, Mike, when you evaluate this team, there are 32 NFL teams. Not everyone's a Super Bowl contender. To me, they're like 8 teams right now who you could legitimately say are Super Bowl contenders. Eagles, Bills, Chiefs, Cowboys, Packers. Bucs still are. They're going to get their receivers back. The Dolphins roster with Tyreek Hill is a game changer. And then it's kind of, is Baltimore, is Minnesota, Cincy, they're right on the periphery. But like 7 or 8 teams right now. How do you say the Eagles are not? What are people looking at to say that? I know people know me. I'm not a homer. I don't care about who wins or loses. It's not my job. My job is to call it down the middle, do reporting, and I put my analyst hat on. Putting my analyst hat on, how could you say the Eagles aren't a contender for the Super Bowl? What criteria do you have to say that they're not?
Yeah, it's and this is part of the nature of the league right now, Adam. You got the detractors who will say, well, you're not beating anybody and there's no one on your schedule. Well, that's everybody. The whole league is stuck in mediocrity. It's hard to gain credibility in a league that has so much mediocrity.
Yeah, it's funny. I call the league. When I worked at ESPN, I would talk to certain people who work for the NFL, like at an office level. Just exchange notes. Hey, what do you think of this? What do you, I get opinions. And one guy said, hey, man, it's competitive balance. That's not parity. And I go, well, wait a minute. Look at these bottom feeder teams. But the guy would argue, look at the top 10 and 12 teams. They're all really good. Okay. Now, is Minnesota good as the 3-1 ranking, the record? I think they're not going to win the division. Green Bay will win it. Or they'll compete for a wild card spot. Okay, they're improved so far. Now, they've only played 4 games. Cleveland, they're okay. They'll get Watson back. We don't know how good he'll be. It's almost 2 years since he's played. Now, are you? Let me answer this question: after Jacksonville blew that 14-point lead, are you down on them now? You got to ask yourself that question.
No, and you're right. Jacksonville, I think, and look, they're in a division where they should scoop up some wins. You've got the Texans. They've already beaten Indianapolis. Tennessee, is battled back after a slow start. Speaking of which, let's look at this week real quick, what we know about the injuries, because you mentioned that could change some things, could be a challenge. Boston Scott the hip. Mailata, obviously huge. Seimala. I don't know that one got under the rug a little bit because it was late in the game. Darius Slay, Avante Maddox. There's some key names on the list. What do we know? What do we think? Yeah,
so we're gonna lay some information on our show that drops tomorrow morning, Mike, on Inside the Birds on all podcast platforms and YouTube. But the one guy that I would be concerned with would be Avante Maddox because of his ankle injury. Because if he had been an offensive lineman where you're playing in space, you don't have to run downfield, I'd feel like he'd have a better chance to play. So right now, I put him in the very questionable category. We'll learn more as the week progresses. We'll see what we can do and not do in training and in practice this week. Mailata, we're going to have an update on our show tomorrow morning. Boston's got the thing there. He's got to get cleared for contact. He has a hip injury. And Seimala got hurt late in the game. That's with his injury history, that's always troubling. I don't expect them all to play. I expect some of these guys not to be able to play. And this is where they'll get tested. We'll have more also on your show on Friday for my spot when we preview the Cardinals game. The Cardinals are not a very good football team. They're very average. The Eagles should not lose to them. They're just not that good. I'm not a big Cardinals fan.
They're much better on the road.
Oh, the Cardinals?
Yeah, they're like 9-1 in their last 10 road games, really and 1-7.
I don't. There's some odd things in professional sports where you just don't. Why are some teams better on the road than they are at home? It's just weird that the Super Bowl's there in 23. But fact of the matter is, the Eagles, for the first time this season, have an injury issue. They definitely do.
Yeah.
And they'll get through it. They've got good backups. So we'll see what happens later this week because their first injury report, as you know, Mike, comes out Wednesday in the first practice of the week, which it's not really a practice. They generally just have walkthroughs on Wednesday. And then their heavy practice, the only real practice they have is on Thursday. And Friday's just a 1 hour or less practice, but it's very light. Oh, by the way, we had John DeFilippo, the former Eagles quarterbacks coach. We have a Patreon subscriber group. And if you go to patreon.com/InsideTheBirds, you could hear exclusively. We're not by our agreement allowed to put that on YouTube. If you become a subscriber, you could hear that interview. It's the best thing we've ever done. It's unbelievable. It's an hour. John gave us an hour, and we're going to get him later in the season. And we go over game planning and everything that goes into putting together a game plan and play calling. It was unbelievably mind-blowing what John was able to and was willing to talk about. He didn't hold anything back. And we went through the leading up to the championship game against Minnesota, the tells that they found and how were they able to win that game. It was simply incredible. So check us out there on patreon.com/InsideTheBirds. And I look forward to talking to you on Friday.
Yeah, football at 4 tomorrow. Mosher's here. Andrew on Thursday with the matchup breakdown, and then Adam with his thoughts on Friday as we get ready for Eagles and the Cardinals here on 97.3 ESPN Football at 4. Adam Caplan, appreciate it, bud.
Thanks, man.
There he goes, Adam Caplan from Football at 4, InsideTheBirds.com, and we do it every day at 4 o'clock right here on the Sports Bash. Of course, the only place you get Football at 4 every day, football 4 o'clock, is the Sports Bash.